Chapter 1 begins in a time so distant that memory itself seems young. Life million years ago when the earth breathed fire and wind, when the sun ruled the sky without mercy and the nights belonged to predators. And in this ancient world where survival was the only truth lived a young girl named Ira, born to a wandering tribe that followed the rhythm of seasons, rivers and herds, a tribe that believed strength was life and weakness was death. Yet Ira was different, not because she was stronger than others, but because her heart listened when the world screamed. And from childhood she watched the land with curious eyes, seeing not just danger and shadows, but stories written in dust and bone, hearing not just the roar of beasts, but the cry of existence itself. And one scorching morning when the tribe moved across endless, golden plains toward a distant water source shimmering like hope on the horizon, fate quietly separated Ira from her people, not by accident but by purpose. As a strange echo carried by the wind reached her ears, a sound not of thunder nor of hunting cries, but of pain, raw and trembling, pulling her steps away from safety and into the unknown. And with every step her instincts warned her to turn back, for this land punished curiosity, yet something older than fear guided her, something that had no name yet ruled the future. And as she climbed a ridge of cracked stone and dry earth, the truth revealed itself beneath the blazing sun. A massive lion, the king of that brutal world, lay trapped beneath a fallen slab of rock, its golden mane matted with dust and blood, its powerful body trembling as breath fought to remain inside its chest. And time itself seemed to stop as Ira's eyes met the lion's, not filled with rage as legends promised, but with pain, confusion, and a quiet plea that crossed the boundary between species. And in that moment the world held its breath because a single decision would change destinies. And Ira knew the rules. She knew lions were death. She knew her tribe would call her foolish or curse her name if they knew. She knew one wrong move would end her life. Yet she also knew this creature was dying not as a monster, but as a living soul crushed by fate. And as the sun burned her skin and sweat traced her fear, she stepped forward, heart pounding like war drums, every breath heavy with consequence. And the lion growled weakly, a warning born of instinct. But it did not strike, could not strike. And Ira understood this was no hunter's moment, but a moment of mercy. And she searched the ground with trembling hands, gathering stones using branches worn smooth by time, pushing against the slab with all the strength her small body could summon, muscles tearing, skin bleeding, hours passing like centuries as the sun climbed and descended. And when exhaustion threatened to claim her, she remembered nothing but the lion's eyes. And with a final cry born from a place deeper than fear, she shifted the stone just enough for the lion to pull free, collapsing into the dust alive, and the air between them became sacred, filled with disbelief and silent understanding. And Ira did not run. She tore pieces from her meager food, placing them slowly near the lion, speaking in whispers though she knew it could not understand her words, telling it to live, telling it the world had not abandoned it. And for days she returned in secret, guarding the wounded king of predators from scavengers and fate itself, cleaning its wounds with water carried in cracked skins, watching strength slowly return to muscles built by nature's cruelty. And when at last the lion stood, towering and magnificent, healed enough to walk into the tall grass where legends are, born, it turned once, just once, and locked eyes with the girl who defied the law of survival. And something passed between them that no language could ever explain. A promise carved into time, and as the lion vanished, Ira felt both loss and peace, believing the story ended there, unaware that this single act of compassion had planted a seed that would one day grow into a legend told by firelight, a legend about how kindness can echo across ages. And as you listen to this story unfolding from a world long forgotten, remember that every legend begins with a single choice. And if you feel that ancient pull in your chest, if stories like this awaken something powerful inside you, then this is your moment to become part of this journey, to subscribe and walk with us as we uncover more forgotten tales written, not in books but in the soul of humanity itself unfolds, as seasons turned and the land reshaped itself under time's relentless march. And Ira returned to her tribe carrying a secret heavier than stone yet warmer than fire, a memory of golden eyes and a life spared. And though no one knew what she had done, something within her had changed, a quiet strength that settled into her bones. And as years passed, the tribe learned to rely on her instincts, for she sensed danger before it showed its teeth, and the elders whispered that the spirits of the land walked beside her. Yet Ira never spoke of the lion, believing some truths were meant to remain silent, and the world continued its brutal rhythm, predators hunting, storms swallowing the weak, tribes clashing over water and land, until one night when the sky burned red with warning and the ground itself seemed to tremble, and from the darkness beyond the firelight came a sound that froze blood and breath. Alike, a roar deeper than thunder, sharper than fear, announcing the arrival of a monstrous predator larger than any the tribe had faced. A beast forged by hunger and violence, its fangs curved like death itself, and chaos erupted as warriors grabbed spears. Children screamed, and shadows danced wildly across terrified faces, and Era stood at the edge of the firelight feeling the same pull she had felt years ago. That silent voice urging her to stand firm even as terror wrapped its claws around her heart. And when the beast charged, scattering men like dry leaves, Ira moved not away but forward, positioning herself between the creature and her people, knowing well that courage did not guarantee survival, only meaning, and the beast roared, its breath hot and foul, eyes locked on hers, and in that instant time stretched thin as memory. And just as the beast lunged, the night exploded with a roar that split the world open, a sound ancient and commanding, and from the tall grass burst a lion larger and stronger than legend, mane flowing like fire, scars etched into its body like the writing of destiny, and Era knew before her mind could speak that this was the same lion, the one she had freed, the one whose life she had saved when the world told her not to, and without hesitation the lion hurled itself into battle, colliding with the monstrous predator in a clash of muscle, fang, and fate, dust and blood filling the air as the earth bore witness to a debt being repaid, and the tribe watched in stunned silence as the two titans fought, beneath the stars, each strike echoing with the weight of survival itself, until with a final earth-shaking roar the beast fell, defeated, lifeless, and the lion stood victorious, chest heaving, eyes burning not with savagery but purpose, and slowly it turned toward Era, approaching her with measured steps, lowering its massive head before her as if acknowledging a bond older than words, a promise fulfilled. And in that sacred moment the tribe understood that they had witnessed something beyond nature, beyond fear, a truth that kindness is not weakness but the strongest force of all. And without another sound the lion turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a legend that would be spoken for generations, a story that proved that even in the harshest age, compassion could bend destiny itself. And as this chapter closes and the firelight fades, remember that every act of goodness plants a seed whose shadow we may never live to stand beneath. And if this ancient tale stirs something deep within you, if you believe such stories deserve to live on, then subscribe to this channel and walk with us through time, where forgotten legends rise again and remind us who we truly are. Chapter 3 flows forward like a river carved by time, carrying the legend of that night into the living memory of the tribe. For after the lion vanished into darkness, nothing was ever the same again. And though life million years ago remained harsh and unforgiving, a subtle shift took root among the people, as if the land itself had witnessed the bond between girl and beast and chosen to remember it. And Era, once seen as quiet and different, now walked among her people with a presence that commanded respect without demanding it, her eyes holding the calm of someone who had stood between death and survival and learned their true faces. And the elders spoke in low voices around the fire, wondering whether the spirits had marked her, whether the lion was a messenger of the earth itself, and children listened wide-eyed as fragments of the story spread, growing larger with every telling. Yet Era herself never claimed glory, never raised her voice to correct or exaggerate, because she understood something deeper, that true power does not shout, it endures. And seasons passed as the tribe migrated across forests heavy with mist, valleys carved by ancient rivers, and deserts where bones whispered of failed journeys. And in each new land danger followed, rival tribes clashed, storms devoured camps, and predators tested the strength of their defenses. Yet again and again Era guided them safely, sensing shifts in wind, reading tracks like open books, feeling the pulse of the land as if it spoke directly to her. And some nights she dreamed of golden eyes watching from the tall grass, not haunting but guarding, a silent reminder that bonds formed through compassion do not fade with distance or time. And during one brutal winter when prey grew scarce and hunger sharpened tempers, a rival tribe attacked under the cover of a storm, believing desperation would make easy victims, and chaos erupted as spears clashed and screams cut through snow-filled air. And once more Era found herself standing at the heart of danger, not because she sought it, but because fate seemed to recognize her as a turning point, and as fear threatened to unravel the tribe. She raised her voice not in rage but in unity, rallying her people, reminding them they were not alone, that survival was not just about strength of arms but strength of spirit, and her words carried weight, steadying shaking hands, sharpening resolve, and together they drove the attackers away, not through brutality alone but through coordinated courage. And in the aftermath, as fires were rebuilt and wounds tended, the elders finally spoke openly, declaring that Ira was chosen not by bloodline but by action, that she embodied a truth the old world had almost forgotten, that life survives not only by killing but by protecting, and from that day forward her role was sealed, not as a queen or warrior chief but as a guardian of balance, a bridge between fear and hope. And the story of the lion grew alongside her legend, told now not just as a tale of rescue but as proof that the world listens when kindness speaks, and travelers from distant lands carried whispers of the girl who saved a lion and lived, of the lion who returned not as a beast but as a hero. And though Era aged, lines forming where youth once lived, her spirit remained unbroken, rooted in that moment long ago beneath a burning sun and a fallen stone, and she understood that her life was no longer just her own but part of a story larger than herself, a story meant to be passed on, just as you are hearing it now, across impossible distances of time. And if this chapter makes you feel connected to something ancient and powerful, if you sense that these stories are not just entertainment but echoes of who we once were and still can be, then remember to subscribe to this channel, because by subscribing you become a keeper of these legends, ensuring they are not lost to silence but carried forward, just as Era carried compassion into a world that desperately needed it. Rises like the final dawn of a long journey, where memory and meaning fuse into legacy, and the world, still wild and merciless, pauses just long enough to listen, for Ira had grown old now, her hair streaked with silver like moonlight on stone, her hands marked by seasons of travel, healing and protection, yet her eyes burned with the same quiet fire that once guided her toward a wounded lion. Beneath a fallen slab, and the tribe, larger and stronger than before, gathered around her as they prepared for one final migration toward lands promised by water and abundance, knowing the journey would be dangerous and that many would test the limits of their courage. And as they set forth, storms rose without warning, rivers swelled, and predators stalked the edges of the camp as if the world itself wished to measure the worth of this people shaped by compassion. And on the most perilous night of all, when thunder cracked the sky and fear crept into every heart, the ground trembled again, echoing a memory buried deep within time, and from the shadows emerged shapes, lions, not one but many, their forms illuminated by flashes of lightning, powerful and watchful, standing not as hunters but as guardians along the tribe's path. And Ira felt peace settle over her like warm earth, knowing the bond she forged long ago had grown beyond a single life into a promise written into the land itself. And as the tribe passed safely through danger, guided by unseen protection, Ira understood her story was complete, not ending but transforming, becoming a lesson whispered to children yet unborn, that even in the harshest age, kindness could bend the spine of fate. And when the journey ended and the tribe reached fertile ground, Ira lay beneath an open sky filled with stars older than fear, smiling as breath slowly left her body, knowing she had lived not just to survive but to change the shape of the world around her. And generations later, long after names faded and bones turned to dust, the story endured, told by firelight as a reminder that heroes are not defined by strength alone but by mercy, and that sometimes the smallest act of courage can echo across 1,000,000 years, reaching even you who hear this tale now. And if this story touched your heart, if you felt the weight of that ancient world and the power of compassion that transcends time, then become part of this legacy by subscribing to the channel, because every subscribe keeps these forgotten legends alive, allowing stories of courage, humanity, and hope to continue roaring through time, just like the lion who once returned as a hero.